absolute favorite Gundam. This was the first time Tomino returned to Gundam since Victory. He recovered from his depression. He directed, writ this beautiful, beautiful series. This series, you can tell, is a lot more uplifting, positive than other series because the overall death count is like 10. Like, really. I kind of like thought this through the other night. I was like, let's see, there was 1, 2, 3, yeah, it's like 10 people. Like, everyone gets their happy ending.
10 people still.
10 people is still a lot, but when you consider there's maybe 50 named characters, possibly more, and usually in other Gundam series, if there's 50 named characters, maybe 39 of them die.
Oh, okay.
So
Point taken.
Turn A is interesting in the fact that the timeline in Turn A is considered to be this point where every single one of the alternate timelines has come together. It is directly related to Universal Century, and we do see some Universal Century mobile suits, such as the Borjanon, which was actually a Zaku. They just kind of dug it up and they're like, oh yeah, let's call this thing a Borjanon, because they had no idea what it was. Turn A is interesting because it takes place in a relatively low technological setting. It's kind of like early 19th century, but technology does rapidly advance as they discover more. After Turn A, we were introduced to Gundam Seed.
Yay!
Yeah.
Bro!
Gundam Seed was the first entry in the Cosmic Era. It is considered to be one of the most popular Gundam series due to its popularity among non-mecha fans, because there's so much character development in it that it focuses so much on the characters and not so much the mobile suit battles, so it drew in a lot of non-mecha fans.
And it was the first one to be shown on American broadcast TV since like Gundam Wing.
Actually, G was shown before that,
G.
and
G.
the original Gundam was also
all the
shown.
originals and the OVAs. Oh, sorry.
Seed was also, interestingly enough, the first series to contain a scene where we're led to believe that a Gundam protagonist had intercourse with someone else. There's a scene where Kira gets up out of bed, puts on his pants, and you see a nude girl sleeping in the bed. So you're kind of led to believe, like, oh, did they just, whoa! Seed would later have a sequel series called Gundam Seed Destiny. Destiny had
Issues.
a lot going on.
Yeah, too much going
Destiny was the first sequel TV series. It's set in an alternate timeline. Seed also had a bunch of different OVAs and extra stuff and extra tons of stuff. Seed was, the Cosmic Era timeline is actually quite full. Seed was supposed to be scheduled to have a movie, but it's kind of tied up in production hell right now. There's no word on a release date. They're just kind of like, yeah, it's happening. It's gonna be cool, guys. So be ready for it. We'll get to it eventually.
As opposed to the compilation movies, you mean? Like an actual...
Yes, an actual movie extending the plot instead of the compilation movies.
Okay.
Seed is sometimes considered to be a modern reimagining of the original Mobile Suit Gundam series. They share a lot of similarities. Seed Destiny also shares many similarities with Zeta Gundam, particularly the conflict between the main character and his love interest. But we'll get to that a little later. The latest Gundam TV series was Mobile Suit Gundam 00. This takes place in the Anno Domini timeline, not to be confused with the actual timeline we live in. Alright? It's like, yeah, maybe this could happen in 50 years, but for now, no, it's different, okay? It's different. It was aired in 2 separate seasons, which is a first for a Gundam. It was also aired in both the widescreen and high-def formats, which is also a first for a Gundam. Seed, I'm sorry, I'm still on Seed. 00, after the last episode of Gundam 00, they announced a theatrical release of a movie called Gundam 00 Awakening of the Trailblazer, which comes out in September, making this the first series to have its own movie that's not a compilation. And a lot of people are looking forward to it, because it looks really cool with the mobile suit designs. If Gundam Seed was considered a reimagining of Mobile Suit Gundam, 00 can be seen as a reimagining of Wing, in the fact that they have very similar plot elements, characters even too.
Anti-war.
Yeah, the anti-war group. The latest entry in the Gundam franchise is Mobile Suit Gundam UC or Unicorn, which I like better. This was originally intended to be the 30th anniversary project and was supposed to be a full-length feature anime last fall. It kinda got tied up and was pushed back, and they reduced it to 26 episodes, and then they decided we'll reduce it to an OVA series of 6 50-minute episodes. This is takes place back in the Universal Century, which is the first Universal Century entry since technically G Savior, but really since like 8th MS Team. Unicorn was the first series to be released on Blu-ray disc. It was also the first series to have a worldwide release. Like the day it came out on Blu-ray in America, it was out in Japan, it was out in other places that I don't know, but it was worldwide. Episode 2 is scheduled to be released this fall, and I really can't wait for it because the production quality behind this anime is just ridiculous. I would like love to, like, if they made everything this way. It's just really ridiculous. Branching away, Super Deformed Gundam, or SD Gundam. Yeah, that's actually not an SD Gundam. I realized that actually came from Super Robot Wars, but it basically, SD Gundam looks exactly the same. SD Gundam kind of has funny origins because it originated as a junior high school student's submission to a magazine where this Gundam was drawn with like the head being half the body. Bandai was like, hey, these would make great toys, let's market them. They sold ridiculously well, and then they're like, oh, let's see how we can put this into TV. So the first SD Gundam series begins as a parody of events in the original Gundam series. For example, we kind of see like these stupid little Zakus taking pot shots at a Gundam relaxing on the beach. and they're just like, hey, my gun isn't working, why can't I hit him? Like, it's very humorous. After this, it kind of developed into its own sort of parody thing, and it even developed further than that into like being generally its own series with a bunch of different settings. They have a Sengoku era setting, a medieval fantasy setting. They have a modern military setting, which was aired in the US as SD Gundam Force, though that was also kind of medieval fantasy as well. Really, SD Gundam is largely unrelated to any of the plot of other series, aside from those original like parody stuff. But you might catch a reference here or there, like using the Gundam image or name. Gundam shows up in other media as well. For example, it did show up in Super Robot Wars. It's basically always in Super Robot Wars. Some 1, 2, 3, maybe 5 series are represented in each game. Yeah. Gundams are your real robots in the Super Robot Wars game. They're not tanks. They don't have massive attacks.
Unless it's G Gundam.
That's true. Unless it's G Gundam, which we should all consider as Super Robot Wars. Every time I say G Gundam, you don't think real robot. That's how you gotta remember this. They also show up in a lot of other like anime series. For example, anyone who's seen The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya, there's an episode where they're having this imaginary space battle, and Haruhi's like, send out the boop-dum, and you see this Gundam come out with a blurred overhead. You're just like, but that's totally Gundam.
Fully coolly with the comic book scene, like the
yeah,
first
there was
episode,
a reference
he's
in
like
there.
the Tamino-esque thing, calling it giant robot.
It's not giant robot anime, it's Gundam. Though they're, if you consider Superverse real, that could actually be a valid argument. Yeah, Gundam shows up really all over the place in other anime and stuff. Let's see, where am I?
They also show up as a lot of character design gags. In Sayuki, because the voice of Duo Maxwell was the lead character in Sayuki. No, not Scott McNeil, the original Japanese Toshihiro Seki.
Okay.
Right.
And he voiced the lead character in Sayuki, and as a result, they did a Duo Maxwell cameo.
Oh, that's interesting. I did not
And it
know
looks
that.
almost exactly like the Duo Maxwell design.
That's interesting. I wasn't aware of that.
Also in a series called Kimi ga Arushi, there's the main character who played Gyomon and Master Asia played 2 characters, and they actually had a fighting scene where the main character was about to use Burning Finger.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that one. I've seen that scene. That was pretty hilarious.
And one more thing. Okay, one more.
Yeah, go.
In the Hayate Combat Butler manga.
Yeah, that references anything.
There's a part in like at the author's block that he makes a small comic. It's like with Nagi and Maria. They're like, yeah, so we finally got the rights now to say Gundam in our manga.
Yeah,
it's like, so we
remember
can
that.
talk about Gundam all the
Gundam,
time.
Gundam,
And then they
Gundam,
just
Gundam.
stare at each other and they're like,
Let's not.
yeah, let's not do that.
Gundam also